Hey guys, and welcome to Faith Works Designs. I am Faith, and I am so incredibly excited to finally have this done. The 80s baby inside of you is going to die and flip when you see what I have made for you guys. It's a pumpkin bucket bag. Now, it might resemble something from the 80s that you guys probably got. I've been wanting to make this for forever and a day and just not had time. So I put it on my list of things that I wanted to do, and so this is what we're going to be doing today. Now, there are several options. There are three, in fact. There's going to be a turning option, which we are going to go over today. There is a binding option, which I will do in another video. If you see the ghost, you can follow along with that. And there's also a witch. I know, it's so cute. I'm going to have to put all of them together. I love these so much, and I love how they turned out. So let's talk about it. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you how to do the turning method. Basically, you sew around it, you leave a hole, turn it inside out, and then sew it down shut. There's a lot of you guys that don't like binding, so I wanted there to be options, and hopefully this will be good enough for you guys. So you've got your little top, and then on the inside, I kept it very, very basic. You could go ahead and put a zipper pocket in this if you wanted to, but as far as the pattern goes, I just wanted to keep it basic so that nobody got stressed out because you're going to be spending a lot of time on the outside. We have all of our little pieces that we put together to make it look more like a pumpkin top. And then you have your D-rings on the side that you can either add a chain, a webbing strap, whatever you want to do. If you want to do the binding option, that's what it looks like on the top. So you'll have your seam at the top and a seam at the bottom. So if you want to see the binding option, make sure that you watch the ghost video. I am so excited to show this to you guys. Let's get started. Alright, so let's go over the hardware real quick. I have got some 8mm rivets. You're going to need 4 sets of those, so 4 caps and then 4 stems. You're going to need 2 zippers. I got the zippers and zipper tape over at Waywack, so they kind of match, but the orange isn't exactly the same, but it's close enough that it looks good. So you're going to need 2 of these zippers. Then you're going to need your main zipper tape. Make sure that you burn your end. Then you're going to need 2 1-inch D-rings. This is going to be called your zipper panel. You're going to need 1 of these, and you are not going to interface it at all. We want this to be kind of a little bit stretchy, so don't interface this piece. This is your zipper flap. It goes above your zipper. Again, you do not want to interface this because we're going to be folding it, and you don't really need the interfacing in this either. Then we're going to have our main panel. This will be in your SVG file. It'll cut it all out for you. I hand cut it just because I didn't feel like dragging out the Cricut and setting everything up. So go ahead and cut that out. There's going to be the template for the Decovil Light or Decovil Heavy, whatever you want to do. I use Decovil Light on this. You could go back and add Decovil Heavy around the outer portion of this. Once you've got it sewn together, it's up to you. I use Decovil Light, and it seems to be pretty sturdy. I just had the face cut out from the Decovil Light so it's not in the seams. Also, from each edge, you want to make sure that it's away from there just to make it a little bit thinner. You're also going to need your face backing piece. This piece is going to go behind your face so that you can have, sew around your cutouts. I would use vinyl for this. I have also used waterproof canvas, and it worked just fine. It's up to you if you want to do it in vinyl or waterproof canvas, lining, whatever. You're also going to need just a little bit of batting. I know you normally don't use batting in a purse, but it's going to make a world of difference in 2 different places. We're going to be putting it in the top knot, and then we're going to be putting it on the lid so that the lid is nice and round. And you'll see that in just a little bit. Then we're going to have the piece that's called your top knot, because it just kind of reminds me of a top knot. You're going to have this piece, and it's going to have a circle piece that needs to go as in the center as you can get it. That's just going to kind of make sure that our center kind of doesn't like squish up on us. You'll see when we go to put this together, but you're going to need 1 of those. Then you're going to need your triangle pieces, and in the instructions I give you guys the Decovil Heavy template. You need to go through and measure down 1.25 inches from the very top of your triangles and then place your Decovil piece there. We're just making sure that they're out of the seams. These are going to fold down later on, and so that's why it makes it a lot easier for it to fold down, because that Decovil is out of the way. So you need 6 of those. You also need your top knot cover. That's going to go right underneath of your top knot once we put a little bit of stuffing in there. You're going to need your zipper gusset. You're also going to interface this piece so that it's 1/4 inch shorter all the way around the edges. Then you've got your D-ring connectors. They are also interfaced. There's a template in the pattern for you guys to use. Then we've got our bottom main panel. I have also interfaced that 1/4 inch shorter all the way around. Then we're going to go over our lining really quickly. You're going to need 1 of your zipper gusset pieces in your lining interfaced. You're going to need 2 of your circles also interfaced. You're going to need your zipper panel lining, 1 of those interfaced, and then you're going to need your main body panel interfaced. And that's it for the fabrics. Alright, so let's grab our face. Well, not our face, the pumpkin face. And what you're going to need to do is grab your face and your face backing piece. I've added a little bit of double-sided tape, kind of just enough to hold our face backing piece in place. We're going to go ahead and do the stitching on the outside. So I'm just going to remove the paper, and then I'm going to put the face backing piece right side to the wrong side of my face, and then press it down. Now we're going to take it to the sewing machine, and what you're going to need to do is about 1/8 inch from the edge, just stitch around all of these pieces. Alright, so for certain vinyls, for my machine, because she's a beast and she wants to eat it and she just can't help it, I have to use a size 12 needle, and it's only on certain vinyls. It's up to you and your machine what you want to use. I'm just letting you know what I'm using on my fabricator. I have a 4 stitch length, and then I'm just going 1/8 inch around the edges, and this is a pretty quick sew, so just take your time doing the face, because that's really what you want to show off anyway. So just take your time, go all the way around each one, and because this is going to take me a hot minute, I'm just going to go ahead and fast forward through me doing this, but hopefully you'll be able to see how I'm kind of moving it around to be able to get the face sewed on. Alright, so we've got the face all done, all stitched around, looks great. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to grab our D-rings and then our D-ring connectors. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put double-sided tape on one side or the other. At this point it really does not matter. But I'm going to take that double-sided tape off. I'm going to slip on my D-ring, and then I'm going to close this up so that it sits. Now if you wanted to, before you do this step, you could go around and edge coat this, and I think it would look really, really nice. You could double these up and then edge coat the edges. It's up to you, whatever you want to do. Alright, so when you hand cut these out, you may have to trim a little. I'm finding when I hand cut them out, I notice that I have a little bit more than I need to trim, because I am not as efficient as, say, a cutting machine. So, alright. I'm going to look on both sides, and I'm going to say which side is my prettiest side, and then I'm going to put a piece of double-sided tape on the opposite side. So I want my pretty side showing. So I'm going to grab my second one. I'm going to do the same thing. Put this on, close it up, and then just kind of look, okay, is that my pretty side? Is that my pretty side? Alright, this is my pretty side, so I'm going to put some tape on the opposite side. Just take a second, check, make sure nothing's peeking out. We don't want anything showing. Now you're going to take your ruler and you're going to measure from the edge, and you're going to take your piece and you're going to make sure that the D-ring, the edge of the D-ring, is the edge of the top. if that makes any sense whatsoever. So your D-ring is going to match up with the top of your panel right here, and then you're going to measure 5 inches in. You can hold that in place and remove your double-sided tape. Then we're going to go to the other side. I'm going to measure 5 inches in. I'm going to remove my tape, and then I'm going to make sure that that D-ring is right along the top and this edge is right along the side, just like that. We're going to take a small ruler and a marking tool, and what I'm going to do is from the fold, I'm going to measure down 1 inch, and I'm just going to mark within that 1/8 of an inch seam allowance that we're going to be sewing these down with. So I don't want to put a big line across here, I'm just putting it on each of the sides, because this marking tool sometimes doesn't come off this vinyl very well. So I don't want to draw a big line. Okay, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be sewing a line straight across here and then around the bottom. So let's go do that. Alright, so I've still got my 4 stitch length. And what I'm going to do is I have my mark here and then I have my mark here. I'm going to start on this side 1/8 of an inch from the edge, which is really difficult to see with the camera in my face. I'm going to hold on to my thread when I start sewing so that I can pull it through to the back when I get finished. And then we're just going to go straight across. This will make sure that this D-ring is away from the back of our presser foot so that you don't have any of those, you know when you're sewing the D-ring connectors and you have to like use a jumper or something like that and sometimes the vinyl gets messed up? I hate that and I don't want to deal with it. So we're sewing down here and then we're going to add some rivets just to kind of keep it in place, and then we don't have to worry about messing up our vinyl, which stinks. Alright, we're sewing 1/8 of an inch away from the edge, around the roundy bits. I'm going to pull my thread through real quick. Maybe, there we go. And then you're just going to meet up with that side, and I'm hoping that I'm meeting back up with it. Okay, okay. So let me show you this. Sometimes, especially like with the face, if you're sewing and you can't see because my foot's in the way all the time, say you don't make it back to the next one, take a needle and thread. Don't pull this through yet. Take a needle and thread, take your needle, thread it, and then push it back down into there. And that way your stitches will look like they're complete. So I'm going to go grab my needle and thread and then just take this tail end and put it right there. And then we're going to add rivets. Alright, so I went ahead and I sewed the second one on off camera just so that the video isn't super long. You guys get the point. Alright, so you should have this little like U shape right here. We're going to put our rivets in. And how I'm going to do that is I'm going to grab, and the lights are probably really not going to do me any favors in the video, but I grab this from Witchery Stitchery, and I want my rivet holes to be centered so that they're not kind of Willy Wonka, you know what I'm talking about. Alright, this has a bunch of holes in it. And what I'm going to do is essentially I want a hole dead smack in the center of this, and then I want a hole right, not directly underneath of my D-ring, but kind of in the center of this as well. So I have got my marking tool, and I am going to try and make sure that I have it centered, and my head is probably going to be in the video. Sorry. Okay, so there's one right there. And then there's one right there. I know there are a lot of marking tools out there now that you can grab that will show you like rivet placements for making sure that they're an inch apart or whatever. But I just kind of like this so that I can place them wherever I need to on my board. So essentially you want one in the center and then in the center up here, and those are nice and lined up. I had forgotten that I had gotten this tool because I don't use it very often, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, how am I going to tell you guys how to make sure that these are centered? Oh yeah, I have a rivet thing that I could place right on my thing and show you guys how to make sure that they're even. So go to Wizardry Stitchery, grab one of these things if they still carry them. If not, there are a ton of people who have 3D printing services or template services that they are actually making these. Alright, next things next, we've got our marks. We're going to need to make our rivet holes. So I've got my cam snap press, and essentially what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make my holes. And you will not be able to see it. So, I'm sorry, I will show you after I make the holes. There you go. So you just want to make your holes so that you can put your rivets in. Alright, now that we've got our holes, I want to get my rivets in. And I'll have to change my dies. So I've got my rivet dies. If you guys do not have a cam snap, you should get one. They are so helpful with all of this bag making stuff and things. I use my cam snap all the time. Alright, so I'm going to put the stem through the back. I've been trying to be more mindful of how I'm putting my stems in on my rivets so that if I need to remove them, I know which side is the cap and which side is the stem, because I've made some boo-boos and I've had to take them out, and I want to make sure that I remember I'm always putting the stem through the back and the cap on the front, so if I make a boo-boo, I can then go back and just pop that cap off. There are tools. I saw one on Size Swags that's out now that you guys can use, and if you know which side you put on your stem or which side you put on your cap, it's really easy to pop them off. And I have got to buy one of those tools because I have made a lot of boo-boos with rivets. So just putting that out there, that's another product that you might want to grab. Alright, all I'm going to do is just squish these down a little bit. I'm not going to like forcibly squish them, because it's only one layer of vinyl. Well, it's 3 layers of vinyl, but it's not that thick. There's nothing in between there. Alright, that's done. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and close this up. So I'm going to take the short ends, and I'm going to put those short ends together like that. We're going to take it to the sewing machine, and at 1/4 of an inch we're going to sew down this side. I've got my stitch length at a 3 because we are sewing now and not top stitching. I'm going to make sure that I'm back stitching when I start and when I stop. I'm going to cut my threads. Now this little bit is optional. If you want to do it, you can. If not, it just makes it look a lot nicer. I am going to put my stitch length back to a 4. I'm going to open this up, and then I'm going to push my seam allowance open, and then I'm going to stitch down one side and back down the other, just so that my seam allowance lays nice and flat. And again, you're not going to be able to see any of this. So I'm opening up my seam allowance, I'm pushing it down, and then I'm going to start sewing 1/8 of an inch from that center seam. And I will show you when I get done so you can kind of see what I'm doing. I'm going to take my hand underneath and just kind of make sure that that seam is pressed down. So it is not going to the left or to the right, but it's opening straight down the center. I know it's going to be hard for you guys to see. With your needle down, turn it around. Again, this is going to be really hard for you to see. I don't know if that helped out any at all, but I'm just kind of got my needle down, and I'm going to hand crank this because I have my 12 needle in and it doesn't like turning. Okay, and then I'm going to keep my needle down and then turn it around. So you come down this one side, now we're going to go down the other. Make sure that that seam allowance is going that way. Let me hand crank it one more time. Okay, there we go. It should look like that on the outside. Now we're going to take our main panel and we're going to find 4 sections. So I'm going to close this up. I'm going to do it on the top and the bottom. So we're just going to come over here, try and find the center, make a little snip, go to the bottom, find the center, make a little snip. I already did, haha. Okay, now take the front snip and line it up with your back seam. So we're going to line them up like that. Then I'm going to go to the right and I'm going to find the center in between the front and the back. I'm going to do it again. I'm going to grab the center, go over to the left, and find the center of the front and back on that side. So you should have 4 points. So you've got the front, the back, the right center, and the left center. Now let's go back to the table. Alright, now that we have our front, back, and side centers on our main panel, make sure that you've got them on the bottom of your panel and the top of your panel. We're going to grab our bottom main panel, and what I like to do, especially because it's a circle, I'm going to fold it in half like a taco, and then I'm going to put a clip there so that it doesn't move. Check and make sure that everything's kind of matching up on the sides. Alright, now I'm going to find the center, and I'm going to make a little clip. And then I'm going to go on the opposite side, find the center, and make a little clip. Take a clip off. Now, the sides that you already clipped, put those together, put the clip on, find the next side center, turn it over, find the next side center, and make a clip. So now you've got all 4 sides. I just started doing the clip on the round bits because it's just really hard to try and get it to stay still long enough for you to find it. If you've ever worked on a round piece and it's really hard to like match it up, do the clip. It really does help keep it straight so you're not messing up. Alright, we need to match up our 4 notches with our 4 notches on our bottom. So start on one side or the other. And we're going to just match up our notches first. Let me grab my cute little kitty bowl with all of my clips. I love my kitty bowl. So much cuter than a little white container from IKEA. So I always get my 4 corners first. Now, you're going to need to go in between those 4 corners and match up your bottom with your main panel. And then just clip all the way around. Alright, let's go into the sewing machine. Alright, and so came the roundy bits. I know. Alright, so if you want to keep your line straight and make sure that your roundy bits stay roundy and not like wibbly wobbly, you're going to have to keep the same seam allowance. That's the biggest tip for sewing round things, is just keeping the seam allowance the same. And I know that it's hard. So I have my left hand inside of here so that if you see how that's just kind of poking out, not quite going where it's supposed to go, I'm going to have my hand on the inside so that I can push it where it needs to go. If it starts to, when I take the clips off, the bottom starts like going in and the out, you know what I'm talking about. So I'm going to put it underneath my presser foot, and I think I'm going to have to move you guys so you can actually see what I'm doing. I'm going to put my presser foot down. Alright, and I'm going to have my left hand kind of making sure that that bottom is going where it's supposed to go, and then kind of pushing or pulling the outer panel, or pulling the outer panel or pushing the bottom panel. And then I'm just going to go real slow so that I can make sure that it's doing what I want it to do. So now I'm going to concentrate and not talk. Alright, now that this is done, we're going to set this aside for now. And that worked out really, really well. I didn't have quite as bit, like, you know how you have sometimes that one thing will just kind of poke through and be annoying? I didn't have quite as much. And I'm happy. It looks good. Alright, now we're going to grab our lining. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to grab our 2 edges here. We're going to sew down the edge 1/4 inch. We'll make our 4 marks and then attach our bottom panel. let's do it. Alright, so I am just going to stick with my orange thread and it'll be fine. Make sure that I'm back stitching using 1/4 inch seam allowance. I am also going to do just like I did on the outer panel, where I stitched the seam allowance with it laying flat, so that that is also out of my way and not extra bulk on one side or the other. I'm just going to open it up and then stitch down one side and then back up the other, just like I did on the outer panel. I have a 4 stitch length. Alright, so we have got our lining panel all sewn up. I went ahead and did the same thing that I did on the outside panel. I put this together and found the center, and then I put the centers together and found the side centers. Now I've got it on both the top and the bottom of my lining, and I went ahead and did it on the bottom of my lining. So I have my centers here and then my side centers. Now what you're going to do is match it up just like you did on your outer panel. Start with your 4 corners first and then clip all the way around. Alright, so I've got my stitch length out of 3, still have my 12 needle in, and we're going to do the same exact thing that we did to the outside. So I'm just going to have my hand in the left side. We're also going to be sewing a 1/2 inch instead of a 1/4 inch. And I do not like sewing 1/2 inches, but here we are. You want your lining to fit in your bag really nicely, and if it's the same size as your outer, you're going to have that kind of like bagginess that happens sometimes. And so I'm stitching a 1/2 inch instead of a 1/4 inch. So we've got our outer and our lining. We're just going to set those aside for right now. I'm going to grab my zipper, my zipper gusset outer, and my zipper gusset lining, and then my 2 zippers. And never fear, I will always show you guys how to put zippers on in pretty much every video. So we're going to open up one end. We're going to grab our zipper just like that, put that side on, put the left side on first, then the right side, and then try and make sure that they're even. If you put your zipper on and it looks like that, you have done it right. So we're going to put it on from one side, and then I'm going to come down to the other side, open that up, take my zipper same way, left side first, right side next, make sure that they are even. Alright, again, if they match up on the edge, you've done it right. Make your zippers meet in the middle just like that. We're going to take our outer and put it right side to the right side of our zipper. And then we're going to take our lining and put it right side to the wrong side of our zipper. And I'm just going to clip those in place. The rest of this I'm going to have to do at the desk. But I do like to take 2 clips with me and just kind of hold them in place. Let's go to the sewing machine. I have got my 3 stitch length, and I am just going to sew all of my little layers together. With a 1/4 inch seam allowance, I'm going to sew a little bit, back stitch, sew, and back stitch, because I do not want that coming undone. I'm going to cut my threads. I'm going to take my clips off. The next thing that I'm going to do is take the right side of this other edge and put the right side of the other end of my zipper together, just like that. My zipper gusset right now and my lining gusset are a little bit wider because the tape from Waywack is just a smidgen wider than the 1/4 inch from other places, and so I made my zipper gussets a little bit bigger. If you do buy the Waywack zipper tape, the pattern only calls for 1 1/4 inch. You might want to make it 1.5 inches, and then you can just kind of cut it down. That's what I'm going to do. Alright, to make this a little bit easier, I'm going to go ahead and just kind of base stitch this in place. It's going to make it a whole lot easier to work with. because that zipper gusset is so tiny. Okay, those clips super help. All right, now you've got your lining right here. You're going to need to take the right side of your lining to the wrong side of your zipper without twisting it or turning it. Of course, that would be pretty much impossible because it's so short. But you're going to take it and you're going to take the end and put it right side to the wrong side of your zipper. You can clip this if you want to, just to kind of hold it in place so that it's not moving. And I like to do that because it is so short, it's wanting to pull away from where I need it to go. So I'm just sew, backstitch, and backstitch. Cut your threads. Alright, so it should look like that. You're going to push it right side out. And so if both of your zipper right sides are facing you on each end and you've made a circle that's not twisted, then you've done it right. Alright, now we're going to grab our 4 stitch length, and what I'm going to do is just stitch on the outside. So just base stitching around the edges and then top stitching along the side. Alright, now that we have our gusset all attached, the next thing you're going to need to do is fold it in half, make a notch on this side and a notch on this side so that you have your back center. And then what I did was I folded it in half and came down to this side and I made a notch on each side so that I have my front center. Then I put those centers together and I found the side center and the other side center. So you have a left and a right side center. You have your 4 marks to be able to match this up. Now, I have seen so many posts of people's zipper tape when they're doing like the roundy bits and they're having to make little snips in it. It's unraveling and everybody's losing their minds because you guys put a lot of work into this stuff, right? We don't want it unraveling. And what I do with this is just give it a little kiss and it's melted. I'm not going to have to worry about that unraveling. So if you've had zipper tape unravel or you're worried about it, just go over it with a little lighter if you're using a nylon zipper tape. Alright, that's done. Next thing we're going to do is set that aside. We're going to go ahead and grab our zipper panel and our zipper flap. Both of these, super easy. We're just going to go ahead and get them made, and that way we can save the hard parts for later. Alright, what we're going to do is we're going to take the edges and put them together, take them to the sewing machine at a 1/4 inch seam allowance, just sew across there. We're going to do that to both the zipper panel and the zipper flap. So let's go do that. Alright, so I have got my 3 stitch length. I'm sewing at a 1/4 inch. I'm back stitching when I start and back stitching when I stop on both of them. And I'm not sewing those together. I'm just sewing them one right behind the other to save on thread. And you're probably going to use about 2 bobbins for this, by the way. Just FYI. Like 1.5. Okay, after you do that, we're going to take these seams and we're going to open them up. And just like we did with the back panel, we're going to sew down one side and then come back up the other. So I'm going to change my stitch length to a 4. Again, I'm not sewing these together. I'm just sewing them one right behind the other. I want to back stitch because I don't want that top stitching to come out. So make sure that you back stitch when you start and stop your top stitching. Alright, so make sure that you top stitch your seam allowances down. So you should have your zipper panel and your zipper flap. And then also don't forget, because I forgot, to go ahead and do your zipper panel lining. Go ahead and sew across there and then open up your seam allowances and top stitch them down just like you did with this. Now, our zipper flap, it's going to be the thicker one. We're going to put wrong side to wrong side. And I'm going to match up my seams like that. And then I'm going to clip this all the way around. Alright, once you have that clipped all the way around, we're going to take it to the sewing machine and we're going to base stitch this 1/8 of an inch from the edge. We're going to base stitch that closed so that it'll stay in that position, and that'll make our little flap that goes over top of our zipper. Alright, so I've got my stitch length out of 4. I'm going to make sure that my edges are together, because if they're not together, I mean, you're not going to see it, but you want it to be the right height when it flaps down over the zipper. So 1/8 of an inch, just sew all the way around. Alright, so we have got our zipper panel and our zipper panel lining, and we've got our zipper flap all done and ready to go. We're going to set all of these aside. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to grab our triangles, and if you haven't already, I measured down 1 1/4 inches, made a line, and then added my Decovil light. You need your Decovil light to be in this spot so that when we get done stitching, it'll flap over a lot easier. And it also, I would go ahead and make those marks because you need to know where to stop stitching. So we're going to put right sides together. We're going to be starting on the bottom and stitching up to where that mark is. Make sure that you back stitch right there. I'm going to go ahead and clip all of my sets together, and then we'll go to the sewing machine and we'll start sewing them. I do them in sets, and then we'll add the sets to each other and then make our little top. Let's go. Alright, so I'm going to start, we have a 3 stitch length. I'm going to start on the end, and I'm going to sew down until I get to that mark. Yes, I'm very sweaty. These lights, it's just turned off hot all of a sudden. Alright, going all the way up to that mark. Now, I'm going to lift my presser foot up, boop, and I want to save some thread, so I'm going to sew these back to back to back. It was like really cold and amazing, and spring-like weather too. And then it just got really hot. So these camera lights do not help the situation. Okay, so 1/4 of an inch, if I didn't say it before. I'm sewing up to that line and I'm back stitching. Now I'm going to lift this up, pull these out, and cut them all apart. This part is also optional. It's up to you. It just helps everything kind of lay better. I'm going to open this up, and I'm going to open up that seam allowance. We're going to sew down to this mark, over, and then back up again. I'm going to switch my stitch length to a 4. I also did one where I just went ahead and 4 stitched all the way down, and then, you know, cut my strings, came back and did it on the other side all the way down, and it laid nice and flat, but after you got so many of them done, it was difficult to see, so I was just trying to keep this as easy as I could for you guys. If you wanted to, you could very well do that, and it's fine. We just don't want to sew these together past that line. So I'm going to top stitch until I hit that line, stop, put my needle down, come back over, needle down, come back down. Try and keep the same top stitching allowance, because this is going to be on the top of your bag and you're going to see it if you kind of start going wibbly wobbly. Which I do all the time. So if you do, it's okay. It is not a big deal. So you're going to do this to all 3 of the sets that you just sewed together. Actually, let me take this off. Okay, so that's what it's going to look like. You're going to go up to your line, come over, and then back down again. And that way it kind of holds these out of the way. And you see what I said when you could see it on the top? That's what it's going to look like. And then they're going to fold like that, if that makes any sense. I just wanted to show you where we're going with this. Could go one more, I think. Alright, now we're going to take the two that we finished and we're going to place them right sides together. We're going to do the same exact thing. We're going to sew down to that line and then top stitch just like we did when we just had two. So I'm just, again, saving thread, sewing right behind them, not sewing them together. That one is just going to be set aside for a minute. I'm going to change my stitch length to a 4. See how we're starting to come to shape here? Alright, so it should look like this. Now we're going to add this last piece right side to right side, and we're going to sew just like we did the other pieces. And go back to the 4 stitch length. So it should look like that. Now we're going to put this side together and do the same thing. I'm going to put my stitch length back to a 3. Last one, back to a 4 stitch length. You see how those are all in the way now? That's why I was afraid to show you guys sewing it straight down. Maybe I'll do it on the ghost one. Maybe, we'll see. Alright, so this one's going to be a little bit harder because you got to get all this mess out of your way. And it's going to be harder to see that line too because you got all of those all up in your business. Alright, it should look like this now, and it should also kind of flip. You should see the top of it kind of poking up now. Alright, let's go to the table and we're going to take care of all these little bits in the center. So we've got our little top. Next thing you're going to need to do is cut out some double-sided tape. It can be 1/2 inch, 1/4 inch, whatever you want to do. But the edge of it, I went ahead and used 1/2 inch because it's a little bit thicker and it'll hold these flaps down really nicely while I'm working on the top knot. But I went ahead and put the edge right at that line that we drew. And then I'm going to take that paper off and I'm going to push that down. I'm going to do that for all of them. Should look like that. Now we're going to grab our top knot and our top knot cover. First thing that you're going to do is you're going to want to grab some kind of smaller ruler and you're going to mark up 1/2 inch from each of the stems. That's going to tell us where to start stitching. You're not going to be stitching a whole lot, but this needs to flap out so that we can connect it to that. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to take this in the sewing machine. I'm going to fold each of these sides in like that. We're going to start at that mark and then sew up just like you would a dart. So starting here, back stitching, coming up here, back stitching, and coming, and then just sewing kind of off the edge like you would a dart. So let's go do that. Alright, so I've got my 3 stitch length. I still have my size 12 needle in. I went ahead and changed the color of my thread because my top knot is brown and I didn't want to turn this inside out and kind of see in any seams that were orange. So I went ahead and just changed that out. Alright, so we're just going to put these ends together. I'm going to start sewing at that 1/2 inch line. And so what you're going to have to do is start 1/4 inch right here on that back line that we drew. You're going to start at 1/4 inch and then you're just going to drive straight, if that makes any sense at all. Just like that. You're going to do that to all of your little flaps. Alright, my Decovil light did not want to stay where it was supposed to be, so I grabbed some double-sided tape and just kind of attached it. That is just so that it'll keep its shape when we turn it inside out. Alright, so you're going to need what we just sewed, your top knot cover, and then a little bit of stuffing. probably don't even need that much. Let's turn this inside out. See, no orange stitches showing through. That's what we want. I'm going to put just a little bit of stuffing on the inside. Maybe a little bit more than that. Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take my cover so that the wrong side is up. I'm going to match up one of these sides, because in the pattern it kind of goes up and down and then kind of on each side. So I'm going to grab one side and I'm going to clip it. I'm going to clip it to that side, and then I'm going to go to the opposite side and I'm going to take that and clip it down. So it should look like that. Now we're going to take these two and bring them over to the edge like that, and then do it on both sides like that. And what we're going to do is we're going to sew around the outer edge. We're not wanting to get anywhere near this center top knot. We're just sewing around that outside edge right now. So I've still got my brown thread in. I've got a 4-stitch length, and then I'm just going to go around this outer edge. I did put the rest of that stuffing in here. The stuffing is going to help the top knot kind of keep its shape, because we don't want it like smushing down, you know what I mean? So you do want to put enough stuffing in there that it'll keep its shape. So we're just sewing around the edges just to keep this in place. Our top knot is all ready to go and very cute. We're going to grab our top flap. What you're going to do is, the top knot has the 6 sides. Our top has the 6 sides. We're going to try and match up their sides, and depending upon how much stuffing you put in it is if they'll match up well or not. So you just want to take your top and just kind of smoosh it down onto your top knot and push as much of that top knot up as you can until this is flush with your top, if that makes any sense. And I think I put just the right amount. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to go to the sewing machine. I'm going to change my thread back out to an orange, and then at 1/4 inch we're just going to sew top stitch our top knot onto our flap. Alright, this is where I would generally put a heavier needle in, just because it is kind of thick in this one spot. I've got my stitch length at a 4, and then I'm just going to kind of push down on my top knot to get it out of my way. And you can give yourself a little more than 1/4 inch seam allowance. It's not really that detrimental. You just basically are sewing your top knot in. But 1/4 inch is just a suggestion. Alright, our top knot is on and he looks so cute. Okay, next thing we're going to do is we're going to grab our zipper flap. What you're going to need to do is put them together. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pick a side. I'm not going to put seam on seam like that. I'm going to put it in the center of one of my triangles, just because there might be too much bulk there. So what you're going to do is just take a bunch of clips and then clip this all the way around. Kind of want to make it go around those pieces that are sticking out. We're going to trim those off later, and then it'll go all the way around. With an 1/8 inch seam allowance, we're just going to go around that edge, and we're going to attach these two together. I have got a 4-stitch length. I should have put a thicker needle in, but I just have not. So you're just going to go all the way around an 1/8 inch and try and push that cover to meet edge to edge. Alright, our flap is on. We're going to set this aside for a second. We are going to grab our zipper panel lining, and our zipper gusset. And grab all of those. I went ahead and found the centers. You need your 4 centers. So you need to do that on your zipper panel and your zipper panel lining. Fold them together, find the back center, find the right center, find the left center. You're going to need to do that on your lining and your outer panel. Now what we're going to do is we're going to put right sides together. I'm going to put the back with the back of my zipper. And because I've made my little 4 marks, I'm going to go around and match those up first. Once I get this all clipped together, I'm going to go to the sewing machine and I'm going to base stitch my zipper into my zipper panel. And that way I don't have to worry about it moving around while I'm trying to add my lining. So I'm going to clip this all up and then we're going to go back to the sewing machine. Alright, so we're all 1/8 of an inch. I've got these 2 base stitched together. I want to say that this is the non-binding method. So if you want the binding method, go watch the ghost video. The ghost video will have the binding method in it. And it's so much easier. Alright, now we're going to put the back of our zipper gusset and the back of our lining together. I'm making sure to match up those notches. I'm going to go from the center front and then the sides, and then I'm going to clip all the way around, and then we'll take it to the sewing machine and sew those together. Alright, I've got my zipper that I base stitched on the right side. I'm going to go ahead and add my lining by sewing 1/4 of an inch. I have a 3 stitch length. And then you're just going to sew all the way around. Alright, so our zipper is attached to our lining. I went ahead and pulled the lining away from the zipper and I clipped around the edges. We are not base stitching the edges unless you want to bind it. If you don't want to bind it, then don't sew along the edges. Leave those alone. I clipped that so that I could make sure that my lining was pulled and far enough away from my outer panel so that I don't end up sewing it too short and then not being able to add my top lining. Alright, next thing we're going to do, I'm going to turn this right side in, and then what we're going to do is we are just going to top stitch. Let's go this way. And at some point I need to put a bigger needle in. I'm going to regret it, I know it. Alright, so we're going to have a 4 stitch length, and then I'm just making sure with those clips that my lining fabric is out of the way and pulled away from that zipper. Alright, hopefully that's better. All we're doing is top stitching down the zipper. Now that we've got all of that done, these 2 should still be separate from each other. Take your lining and pull it up towards your zipper. We just want to get that lining out of the way for a minute. Okay, I'm going to go back to my top. I'm going to go back to my top, and those little corners that are sticking out, I'm just going to trim those just so that all of this is nice and rounded. Alright, I'm going to take this and I'm going to find my back seam, and I'm going to match up my back seam of my zipper panel and the back seam of my zipper flap. And I'm going to match those up and then clip them together all the way around. Now, we're going to take this to the sewing machine, and at 1/4 of an inch, we're going to add the zipper panel to the zipper flap and our top. Let's go do that. Alright, I have got a 4 stitch length, still have my 12 needle in. Oh my goodness. Alright, 1/4 of an inch, we're going to start sewing, holding on to my threads. Now, it's a roundy bit. When you're going to sew around the roundy bits, you want to try and keep the same seam allowance, and your roundy bits will look right when you get finished. So just take your time going around the roundy bits. everything together, when we flip this right side out, we're doing like we're supposed to do, and it looks great. All right, flip that back. I don't know why I did that, but all right, we've got our 4 corners, right? Our back, our front clip, our side clip, and our other side clip. That's important for this. I did the taco where you fold it in half, clip it, find the notch on this side, find the notch on this side, open it back up, taco it again, find a notch, find a notch. So I've got my 4 corners. Next thing we're going to have to do is we're going to have to tuck the zipper out of our way, and then right side to right side. That zipper is not in this situation, so you're going to have to push him out of the way. I'm going to match up my notches first and clip those together. I'm just pushing that zipper down out of the way. You are not invited to this party. Sorry. Alright, now we're going to take that zipper and continue pushing it out of our way and matching up our zipper panel lining with our bottom lining, and we're just going to clip those together. We're going to sew around this, and you're going to need to leave a hole to turn all of this mess inside out. I know, binding would have been so much easier, but I wanted to give you guys this option in case you're new to binding and you just absolutely hate it. You're going to have to figure this out. Again, if you want to see the binding video, go watch The Ghost. I was trying to do 2 methods so you guys could do whichever method you were more comfortable with. If you're more comfortable doing this, you do this. You do you. But I would probably leave about this much open on the lining so that you can turn it inside out, because you are going to have to turn all of this inside out. So just keep that in mind when you're sewing. Okay. Phew. Alright, my battery died on me. We're going to take this to the sewing machine and we're going to sew these 2 together. Make sure that as you're sewing, you're kind of pushing that zipper out of the way. We don't want to catch our zipper into this. Alright, so I went ahead and made myself some marks so that I know where to start and where to stop. I may make it a little bit bigger just to make sure that I have plenty of room. Alright, again, this is going to be a little bit difficult because it's round, but try and keep the lining. I'm going to move you in just a second, guys. You want to keep the bottom lining edge aligned with the zipper panel lining, and hopefully I'll do a good job, but we shall see. You're going to be using 1/4 inch. Make sure that you backstitch really good when you're starting, because you're going to be pulling this through that opening, and you're not going to want the stitches to start coming undone. Alright, I got my hole. I went back real quick because I didn't backstitch very well, and I went ahead and backstitched a little bit better at where I started and where I stopped. Alright, we're going to turn all of this through that hole. Alright, once you get it inside out, you need to kind of straighten everything up before you move on. What you're going to need to do is you're going to need to take your zipper panel, fold it under 1/4 inch, and then your rounded lining. I know it's it's round, so it's going to be a challenge. Fold the bottom, the top panel up under 1/4 inch, and then sew those together. I'm going to be using a ladder stitch. You could take it to your sewing machine and just zip right across there, and it's no big deal. We are not judging here. Whatever is easiest for you. If you don't know how to do a ladder stitch, you can go online and check it out, because it's actually a really, really great stitch to close things up where you cannot see them. It makes it like everything is kind of invisible, and it's a really good stitch. I use it a lot on stuff. So that's what I'm going to do real quick, and I am well aware that this is round, but we can do it. let me go grab some thread and then I'll show you how I do my ladder stitch. Alright, so I have got my needle and my thread. I went ahead and I put a knot on the end. What you need to do is go through either the rounded bit or the side panel, and you go through the wrong side, like right up where your stitches are, or where they stopped, I should say. We're going to come straight through, and I am aware that it is black thread on black fabric, and I am so sorry. Alright, so we're on, let's say we're on the right side. We're going to take our thread to the left side, and wherever that thread lands on the left side, that's where you're going to need to stick your needle in. So it's right there, so I'm going to stick my needle in and out just a little bit, just like that. I'm going to pull it through. Same thing. Take it from the left and bring it back to the right. You see where it falls? Take your needle right where that thread is. Push it in and out. You're on the edge of your seam allowance. Okay, and then pull it through. You don't want to pull this tight just yet. You want to do a couple of stitches and then you can pull it tight. So take the thread from the right side back to the left side, and wherever that thread lands, put your needle in and out. Just like that. And then pull it through. And then you keep doing that all the way down, and then once you pull it taut, you see how it's completely invisible and you don't see it? That's what you want. So again, on the right side, wheel in and out. Take your thread to the left side, and wherever it lands, you'll put your needle in and out. I hope this makes sense. If you're not getting it because of the black on black, there are tons of tutorials out there that'll show you how to do this, and that way you can figure this out, because it really, like you guys, I'm telling you, I use it all the time because I don't want any stitches to be showing. I don't want any raw edges. I don't want to like just sew over this and have it showing, because it will stick out like a sore thumb. And you're doing all of this work. You want it to look really good when you get finished with it, because the better it looks, the more you can charge for them, right? And the more time you take doing this, the more you can charge for them. So I'm just going back and forth. Alright, I'm going to finish this up. You just make a knot at the end. I'll tell you what. Let me just fast forward this part and I'll show you what I do at the very end, because I need to show you how to tuck in your little threads. Alright, so I went a little past where my stitches started and stopped, and then I'm going to take the end. I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to wrap the thread around there 3 times. And then I'm going to pull it through, holding onto that thread. And we're just going to make a little knot. Okay, so we've got our knot that you probably most likely cannot see. I'm going to go right next to the knot, in and out of that fabric. Right? I'm going to pull it, and I'm going to pull gently until that knot goes into that hole. You should hear it pop if it's in there. Alright, I didn't hear it pop, but it's in there. I could see it. Alright, so then trim your thread up as close to the fabric without cutting your fabric, and then kind of pull it a little bit, and the tail should go inside of there. And then that way, as you can see, no seams. So when you look on the inside, let's push this back out and push all of that up. I could have used a yellow thread and closed it up, like you do with a regular coin pouch or something. I could have done that, but now, doesn't that look so much better, not having any seams in there at all? Now, if you do the binding method, it's a lot tighter and it looks a lot better. But if you just cannot do binding, hopefully that worked for you. Alright, let's attach to the body. We're almost done. Alright, got our top all done. we're going to grab our main body, and what we're going to do is we're going to take the back. We should have all of our back seams all in a row. I'm going to take this back notch and I'm going to match it up with the back notch on my main panel, and we're going to have to squeeze her in because she's got a lot of body here. I'm going to clip all the way around. First thing I'm going to do is match up those notches that we made, our front, back, and side notches first, and then you're going to have to kind of move that zipper around, and it's going to be tight. Your zipper will feel like it's loose, but it's tight to get the rest of this in here, if that makes any sense whatsoever. So just kind of move that top around and tell it what to do. And then grab the sides and then clip all the way around. Alright, so I have a 4-stitch length. I've got my orange thread in. What's going to happen is your zipper is going to want to fight you on this. So we're going to base stitch this in first. We're just going to go 1/8 of an inch around this corner, and I may have to move you. We're just going 1/8 of an inch all the way around, making sure that the edge of your zipper is at the edge of your main panel. Alright, we've got that done and base stitched in place. Next thing we're going to do is grab our lining, and we're going to open up our zipper as best you can. Open that up, because when we turn this inside out, it's going to be a whole lot easier if our zipper is already open, and that'll kind of help that go and be out of our way. Alright, now we're going to take our lining, turn your lining right side out, and what you're going to do is you're going to match up the right side of your zipper gusset to the right side of your lining, and we're going to put those together like that. This one we are also going to leave a hole to turn this inside out, but we don't have to hand sew it because we're going to be top stitching, and the top stitching will help close that up. So no more hand sewing, I promise. I also should be matching up my notches to make sure everything's lining up, probably. Alright, so I'm going to clip all this all the way around, and then we're going to go to the sewing machine, and 1/4 of an inch we're going to sew the lining and the outer panel together, making sure to leave ourselves a hole. And you see how much you have to turn inside out. So just leave yourself a decent hole to turn everything. Alright, let's go to the sewing machine. So we're just sewing at 1/4 inch. I'm not going to start on my back seam. I'm going to start a little away from my back seam, so I don't have to put all of those layers into that. Come on here. Alright, I've got my stitch length at a 3. Just try to make sure that your lining and your main outer panel are staying together on the edges. Left ourselves a nice hole. I went ahead and backstitch really well at the beginning and the end, and then you can just kind of get your flap out first, your top, and then just squeeze everything through there. Alright, now what we're going to need to do is you're going to need to kind of finger press your lining away from your outer panel, and then we're going to take this to the sewing machine, and we are going to top stitch all of this. And when you top stitch, you need to try and make sure that this is folded over 1/4 of an inch, and that the zipper is, it wants to pop up, but you need to tell it to go down. And then you need to stitch that closed. So let me get this kind of clipped up, and then we'll go to the sewing machine, stitch it up, and then you're done. Alright, we're going to do our top stitching. I have finally changed my needle out to a thicker needle because I know a 12 would not go through the back of that. Alright, what I'm going to do is start right before where my flap is that I did not sew and how I turned it inside out, that little section. I'm going to start right before it because I want to nip that in the bud and get it done. I'm going to sew with the right side down. The way that you want to make sure that your outside top stitching looks mwah, is we're going to keep the same seam allowance. So I'm going to push that lining in, and I'm using my foot as a guide. So the black part right here is going to stay right on this edge of the black here. And I am going to take my time because I want my top stitching to look good. And you need to make sure that your edges are folded over well. The part where we turned it inside out of, I went ahead and clipped it, and then I'm just going to kind of move it into place. Again, I'm just using my foot as a guide, and I'm trying really hard to just take my time, especially on this spot, but the rest of it as well. So pull your outside fabric to the left, and then your lining to the left, and just follow that foot all the way around. Now, having turned this inside out, you might notice that there are some wrinkles on your vinyl. If you leave your vinyl and your purse all done, put some stuffing into it, some sort of, I get the brown paper from Waywack, and I stuff them, and I leave it for a day or two, and it straightens itself out. You could take a smaller iron on the inside of your bag, not on your vinyl, on the inside of your bag, and kind of like press it from the inside. I wish I had a smaller iron so I could show you what I was talking about, but I hope you get what I mean. If you have a smaller iron, go for it, try it out, see if it'll help straighten everything up. Again, the binding one, it doesn't have as much. It has a little, but it doesn't have as much of the crinkling, and it does really depend on what kind of vinyl you use. Also, watch out for your zippers now. Don't catch your zippers. That would not be good. You would for sure break the needle. See, I'm making sure that my zipper pull is over there and out of the way. You are not invited to this party, sir. All right, back where I started, I'm just going to go a stitch past it so that I can pull that thread through. Okay, there we go. Let's take a look at it. All right, so let's look at it a little bit closer. You see where my top stitching is pretty consistent? That's because you have to just take your time and be consistent going all the way around. So straighten up the bottom, straighten up the top. I would stuff it with something and then just give it a day or two to kind of figure out that it's supposed to be this shape. And then you should all be done. Love him. So cute. Alright guys, so what did you think? I hope you liked this video. I hope you liked the pattern, and I hope that turning works out for you. If it doesn't, give the binding a try. Now I know it's going to be a little bit thick. It gives the bag more of a structure when you have the binding at the top and the bottom. I don't know what it is. It just does. So the turning method, I find that it's not quite as structured. It's up to you. If you don't want to do binding, do it this way. You could also do it in drop-in. Now, I have already worked so much on this that I was not going to make a third video for drop-in, but if you want to do drop-in, you could very well do that on the very bottom portion. It's up to you, whatever you want to do, and I cannot wait to see what you guys are going to make with these. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, or if you want to subscribe and see what else we're going to be doing, there may be a few more add-ons, there may be some cut and sews coming up in the future. You won't know unless you subscribe. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comment section down below. I do check those daily, I do check those daily, and thanks for joining us again on Faithworks Designs. Bye guys. Alright, for our other set of D-rings, we're going to grab our two D-ring connectors. If you flip them over, you're going to put a center line, then add a piece of Decovil light in the center. Then you can grab some double-sided tape and put it right down the center. Then you're going to take the paper off. Ooh. And then take each side and push it down into the center. You're going to do that on both of them. Alright, now that you've got that done, the next thing that we're going to do is on the right side of your fabric, we're going to mark 3 inches down on one side. Okay, we're going to take this to the sewing machine, and on each side, so from this edge, we're going to stitch down with a 4-stitch length until we hit that mark and stop. Pull your threads out and cut them, and then we'll put them towards the back. So let's go to the sewing machine and do that. Alright, so there's my 3-inch mark. I'm just going to start right there on the edge. Pull it out, and then I'm going to pull the threads to the back when I get done so that it'll look like that. When you're finished, it should look like this. Next thing that we're going to do is on the wrong side, we're going to measure 3 inches down on the left side. The side that we don't have stitches on, you're going to measure 3 inches down. And then we're going to draw a line there. And then we're going to put a little bit of double-sided tape right past that line, just like that. And we're going to grab one of our D-rings, remove the paper, put your D-ring on, take the side that you did the stitches on, and then fold it over to that line and press it down. Then we're going to grab another piece of double-sided tape, place on the back just like that. Alright, once that's done, let's grab our main panel. And then what we're going to need to do is grab your ruler, measure over 6 inches. We're going to put our D-ring connector on that 6-inch mark. So just over top of that, you're going to have to kind of fold this up and look as you put it down. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take my paper off, and then where I can see this, there we go. So this center line is going to fall right on top of this line here, and you're just going to lay it down. Then you're going to go to the sewing machine and start stitching here, go up and start and put your needle down, come over and then back down again. So we're going to start at the bottom. We're going to come all the way up to where our stitches are. I'm going to go one more to make sure I'm there. There you go. With your needle down, turn it. Alright, we're going to do the same thing on the other side. I'm going to grab my ruler and measure in 6 inches. And then I'm going to grab some tape, place it down the center of the back. We're going to mark it 6 inches. And then I'm going to lean this towards myself so I can see what I'm doing. And then right down the center of that mark, you're going to lay this down, just like that. We're going to do the sewing machine and do the same thing we did. So up, over, and then back down again. Still got my 4-stitch length. Alright, so that is both of your alternative D-ring connectors. If you were wondering what I was doing with the orange piece, I was putting it right here, kind of acting like a puddle jumper. I've heard it referred to as that. But anyway, it makes sure that this vinyl down here didn't get messed up, but it got messed up on here. Just I couldn't turn it around enough. So anyway, those are done. If that's the way you want to do the connectors, it's just another option in case you feel like this is a little more secure. And then you would just finish the rest of the bag like you would normally do.